It is Legends territory. Scotty Braun and A.J. Pruszinski, big one coming up for you. And thank you to our MLB Players Alumni Association fam for setting up the best former player conversations. Check out baseballalumni.com for more info on your favorite former players. Quick reminder, if you're watching on YouTube, this is also a podcast on Apple and Spotify. Just search Legends territory. Big Mac coming through, okay? 12-time All-Star. He won Rookie of the Year in '87, Gold Glove. He's got Silver Sluggers, Home Run Derby champ, World Series champ. Over 500 career homers, 16 seasons for the A's and for the Cardinals. OPS lifetime close to 1,000, on base nearly 40% of the time. And I would just say, from a cultural perspective, part of one of the wildest times in the game's history, the 1998 home run chase. Mark McGwire joining us right now on Legends territory. Big Mac, how you doing, man? How's life?
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. AJ and Scotty, thank you. I appreciate it.
Now, he doesn't
life
know
is good. I don't have any complaints. Life is really good.
Mac, you don't know this, and you probably are going to be like, I don't give a shit about that. But I'm just gonna tell you this. You and I have a special connection. And he's like, what are you talking about, right? He's like, you see his face? Like, what? So my first day in the major leagues was the day he hit the home run off Steve Traxel, 9/8/98. It was my first day in the major leagues.
Okay.
We were in Anaheim. I get called up in Anaheim. We're about to take BP. And on the big screen in Anaheim, they stop BP, and you come up and you hit the home run off Traxel. And I'm like, man, this big leagues thing is kind of cool. Like, I mean, they do this every day or what?
Yeah, that was, wow, what a time that was, right? Holy shit. 25 years ago.
Yeah.
I believe that.
That's wild. That was your first day.
First day in the major leagues. It was the day 9/8. I mean, easy to remember, 9/8/98.
Was there ever a time in your career after that where they stopped BP to show anything on a screen?
No, never.
Exactly.
No, that's what I'm saying. Never, ever did I ever see anything close. Everyone, the Angels were finishing up. They stopped BP, because BP never stops. We were stretching, stop, and everyone looked up at the screen in right center field, and Traxel was up, and McGwire comes up and does a little bat waggle and hits the line, drive down the left field line, trots around the bases, and I'm like, this big league shit's cool.
Yeah.
A little waggle, huh? Yeah, I get that all the time. A little.
Hey, Mark, I'm curious to jump right into it. Do you have any PTSD from so many fans and media, especially during that time period, just wanting every second of you? I mean, I don't think there's ever been anything like that in baseball since then. Like, I almost think about it with the guy Wembyana right now, who comes over and is the number 1 overall pick in the NBA. Obviously, maybe like a LeBron, but even just the way that the chase back then was being covered. I remember there was one story, I think, where like you were stopped in traffic and people like found out you're there. They start crowding you. So are you like, you know what, I'm going to kind of lay low nowadays. I had enough person-to-person interaction.
Well, yeah. I mean, I didn't go to school for what was going to happen to me in '98. I mean, I just was a pure baseball player, and I was learning on the job how to deal with the media, how to deal with the fans. You think about the fans on the field right now prior to a game. That all started because of what I was doing. They started selling, tickets for people and groups to come down on the field and watch batting practice. I think the biggest thing for me to understand was I had to play a game before a game just for batting practice. There would be 10 to 15 to 20,000 sometimes in stadiums come and watch me take batting practice prior to the game. It's just, I just one of those things that I had to dig deep down inside my mind to understand and to separate that. That's why I was huge on taking my nap or my meditation 15 to 20 minutes prior to the game. I was visualizing. I had a really good game plan. But it all came down to getting pitches to hit. And that being said, it's not easy to hit when you're going to the plate and knowing the pitcher's not going to throw you a strike. And so my mindset was I was ready for anything, because when the pitchers are trying to squeeze a little bit harder to try to get you out even more than a regular player, from what I was going through, I knew they were going to make mistakes. And so I had to be ready for that. I think that created me having such a great on-base percentage, because I go back all the way in college when I started hitting. My sophomore year in college, I went to college as a pitcher, but Rod Dedeaux, the legendary Hall of Fame manager, head coach at USC, used to tell me a walk is as good as a hit, and it just stuck in my mind. So it taught me patience, but it really, really sank in '98. I had to be really, really patient, but being patient as a hitter is not being passive. I had to be ready to hit. Now, that being said, to deal with all the fans and everything, I had a nice little routine. I would go do my ground balls. I would go in the outfield. I would, shag, and then I would take my little 5 or 10 minutes and go down the first base line or third base line, depending what dugout we're in, if I'm home or away. And I would sign my autographs, come in and do my batting practice. And again, it's a total mindset. And I dug deep inside, which I didn't think I could ever get that deep inside. And it turned out to be an incredible year.
So you're the one that I have to blame for all the people on the field during BP now?
Yeah.
I was like,
I'm telling you.
all the people are like, you're trying to hit, and you're like, please sign, please play. You're like, oh,
no,
please,
I'm
dude,
telling you, it's not like I wanted it. It's like the teams were like sitting there going, hey, we can make some money here.
Yeah.
Fans are coming in, they're paying for the seats, but you know what? We can get some more money by putting them on the right behind the big turtle there, and watch the guys take batting practice. So yes, that is the reason, is because of me.
So when you were in college, because you mentioned Randy Johnson or USC, you were there with Randy Johnson.
I was.
You were a pitcher. So were you like, I'm going to be a pitcher, but wait, then I got this big lefty dude throwing 100 at 6'10"? Maybe I should be a hitter.
What's so funny about Randy Johnson is, like, listen, he got it late. Randy Johnson, when he was in college, he was throwing it all over the place. He couldn't hit the side of a barn. And it's like, but the thing is, I went there as a pitcher. And the first day sitting in Rod Dedeaux Stadium, Marcel Latchman, legendary Marcel Latchman, who was pitching coach for many teams, the Angels, Colorado, everybody. And it's he stood up there and he said, I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to be going to the California Angels at the time. That was the name, not the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, but the California Angels. I'm going to be running their whole minor league staff as far as pitching. And so I never got to throw one pitch for Marcel Latchman. He's the one that recruited me to go to USC. I ended up pitching my first year, more pitching. I had some at-bats. I hit maybe 3-4 home runs or something like that. But it wasn't until I got asked to go play up in Anchorage, Alaska after my freshman year. And I went there as a pitcher. I took them out the first game for Anchorage, Alaska. Jim Dietz is the head coach, and he was out of San Diego State. I couldn't get out of the first inning. I think I gave up 4 or 5 runs. The next day, they came to me and they said, hey, Mark, we don't have a first baseman. Would you like to hit every day and put pitching aside? And I said, yeah. And I think I won the batting title. I hit like 13, 14, 15 home runs that year in that summer league. Went to Wichita, played the NBC tournament. I believe we came in second. And then I came back to school my sophomore year. And at the time, Ron Vaughn, who was our hitting coach at SC, was the hitting coach up there in Anchorage. And Ron Vaughn lost his job because Rod Dedeaux let him go because I went up there to be a pitcher. I came back as a hitter. And then my sophomore year, I fought Rod Dedeaux back and forth. He wanted me to pitch and play first base, and I wanted to concentrate on one thing, just hitting. I just put pitching aside, even though that's what I wanted to do ever since I was a kid, to be a pitcher. I ended up breaking the USC home run record that year. And then Rod Dedeaux, my junior year, after I went and played on the Pan American team in 1983, traveled the world, played first base. I came back my junior year, and Rod says, hey, I like the 3-run homer better than you being on the mound pitching. And I ended up leading the nation that year, my junior year in 1984, with 32 home runs. and I played in the 1984 Olympic team, and it was a demonstration sport, and that's how I became a hitter.
Well, it worked out quite
Yeah, I think
well.
you made the right choice.
Yeah,
Good job.
Well played.
Hey, AJ, I'm sure there's probably many days you probably wish, just like I did, I wish I was on the mound.
Oh, hell no.
Hell
no.
Not you? No?
Hell no.
But there was times when I was
I only
in the
wanted to do it one time.
24s and stuff.
I only wanted to do it one time, okay? It was somewhere later in my career because, people threw at me a lot. So I just wanted one shot where I got to throw at somebody and hit them. That was it. I always told I said, if you ever need me to pitch, just let me pitch once. I'm probably going to get ejected, but I'm going to hit somebody before the.
Hey, you know what's funny? You just said a thing. You used to get thrown out a lot. I was pelted all the time. Like old school.
Yeah, but it was Mark. It was different though. They were pelting you so you wouldn't hit a homer. They were pelting me because they knew I wouldn't homer and I couldn't steal, and they were just mad at me. They were trying to stop you from doing something. They were trying to get me to do something.
Dude, I was hitting the head like 3 or 4 times in my first 2 years, and they were all on purpose, and it was all about intimidation. And I remember that conversation one time, my rookie year, Reggie Jackson. His last year was my first year. I got hit like, I don't know, 2 times. And then he goes, son, this is what he said to me, son, you're just going to have to go out there one day and stop it. And so I got hit one time and I went out there. And, it wasn't like the fight over there in Cleveland and in Chicago the other day, but it was I forget who the pitcher was, but I got him in a nice little headlock underneath the whole pile. But that was it. And that's the old school. Billy Martin was the manager of the Yankees back in those days, and he's like, "Who's this young buck hitting all these home runs? We're going to intimidate his ass." And that's just you're just earning your stripes. And unfortunately, today they don't allow that anymore. But that was that made me a tougher player.
While we're on that with Oakland, I mean, you've been a California guy your whole life. Does it sadden you that they're going to lose a ball club? Like, this is a major part of your history and the way it's been done. I mean, I'm sure you've followed it. The way it's been done is brutal.
I followed it, not as closely as I probably should. Yeah, it's very unfortunate what's going on, but it's unfortunate what's happening to the whole Bay Area with the homeless and all that stuff. I mean, last year I went up for Dave Stewart's retirement, his number. And it had been a couple of years since I've been up there, and we were coming into the stadium, and I was absolutely shocked to see all this homeless homes and these abandoned cars and trailers, and people were living on, like, driving in. And I was sitting there thinking, I'm like going, can you imagine being a rookie and you get the call and you say, hey, mom, dad, come to Oakland. This is my first games are going to be Oakland Alameda Coliseum, and they have to drive through and seeing that. I mean, I was saddened by it. I really think they can make something work, but obviously it comes down to money. It comes down to money. It will be a sad day in the Bay Area if Oakland allows it or Major League Baseball approves it. I think I saw something the other day. I think the Oakland mayor is supposed to be meeting with Rob Manfred and try to get something going, but I think it's just more up to the owners in the city. I know Dave Stewart's been a huge advocate of trying to keep it there, along with other players. I wish they do, because it's like, it would be so weird. Now, listen, Oakland came from Kansas City, right? But now it's like Oakland's going to go to Las Vegas. Do you keep the name A's? Where are they going to play if they decide to go to Oakland? They can't play in the AAA ballpark. Where are they going to play there? I mean, it's like, what are they going to do for the next 2 or 3, 4 years when they build that beautiful stadium, if that does happen? But it's going to be a sad day. There's so much history, so much goes behind that. And I mean, just the time that I was there from 88, 89, and 90, and 92, the playoff games, the World Series games, used to pack that place. It will go down as a sad day in my heart, and go a sad day in the organization's heart.
How many people have told you, because I used to hear this, I only know Oakland as the stadium they have now with the Mount Davis out in center field.
Yeah.
People used to tell me all the time, that was one of the best ballparks to go to. They had flowers out in the outfield.
Yeah.
They had like berms, and they had all these great people out there. And then they built that, and it kind of changed everything.
Yeah.
I wish I could have seen it like that.
Well, it was beautiful. Now, that's funny you said that, because it's like, so Al Davis took the Oakland Raiders and went down to L.A., and then all of a sudden Oakland took the fishing line and hooked them back in and brought them back in. That's when they started building Mount Davis. And I'll tell you what, it was absolutely a beautiful ballpark. You did have all these flowers out there. You had BART station up, the train going through, and up in the outfield. But, AJ, it was one of the hardest ballparks to hit in, with the foul lines, and the ball didn't go anywhere at night. I know I hit 49 home runs my rookie year, but probably lost 5, 6, 7 home runs because the ball didn't go anywhere. The dimensions were, I think, close to 400 to center, 375 in the gap, 330 down the line, but it played a lot bigger. And then the amount of at-bats that we lost just on foul balls was tremendous.
I feel so sorry for you, Mark. I just, man, I feel
583 should have been.
Yeah.
583
could have been 590 or 600.
Yeah, but, hey, listen, when you're a young rookie kid, and you're playing there, and you're not thinking about hitting 500 home runs. You're just thinking about surviving. You're thinking, oh my God, I just lost a home run. I hit the crap out of that. But you can ask all these old time players. They would tell you that Oakland was one of the toughest places to. If you're a pitcher, you definitely would want to go to Oakland back in the day.
So let's fast forward. Last year, Aaron Judge and his home run chase. How much did you follow that? Could you relate to that? Did you connect with him?
I sent a text through a friend to say congratulations to him. I got through Matt Holliday when he was playing with the Yankees towards the end of his career. He hooked me up and I got to talk to Aaron when he broke the all-time rookie record. And so, but years later, he ends up hitting what he did last year. And it's a true feat, man. It's just like, people have no idea we talked about earlier about the pressures of going through that. I can only imagine what he was doing in New York, and just walking around town it's a little bit different than walking around town in St. Louis. Walking around town, and the media, the scrutiny, the social media today is so much greater than what I was going through. It's just the anxiety, the preparation, the things that can derail you from your game plan are so much greater. But man, I tell you what, he is such a force. I love watching him play. It was sad to see what happened to him in LA when he broke his toe and had to be out after that great play. And baseball missed him. I'm glad he's back now. He's hopefully he'll finish strong with the Yankees and get them into the wild card.
And then I also want to ask you about the story of the year, which is what Shohei Ohtani is putting together, because
wow.
You were a member of the Padres organization not long ago, and they were in the running for him, and they're probably watching him now being like, damn, is there something else we could have said to him?
Yeah, they might get him next year. You don't know.
True. True.
Yeah, So I was lucky enough. I was the bench coach with San Diego, and we brought a bunch of people up to LA. I believe the groups he's with, the CAA. So we had a meeting at their offices, and I went as one of the coaches in there. I've never, I watched videos on him hitting. I watched videos on him pitching. And when I watched videos on him hitting, I'm like, over in Japan, I'm thinking, okay, he's a good hitter. I didn't see what I'm seeing now, or what we're all seeing now for the last 6 years. Now, when he walked in the room, the first thing I thought, I was like, holy shit, man. This is one good-looking guy. This guy's an actor. This guy should be on film. First of all, he's tall, good-looking guy, and he carries himself like a true professional for how young he is, or was back when the time I met him. And I thought San Diego, I thought we had a hell of a meeting, and then obviously got the word that the Angels got him. But we were talking about before we started this podcast. The thing is that I saw about him hitting is I'm like, okay, I can see where he can be a good hitter, but it wasn't until latter part of spring training. I don't know if it was Albert Pujols or any of the hitting coaches there, talked him into stop doing the leg kick. the ball was getting on top of him, and he was getting jammed a lot. He stopped doing the leg kick, and now you're seeing what you're doing right now. It's just like, it's incredible. We've never seen anything like this. It's like he hasn't lost anything pitching wise. He's still throwing in upper 90s. He's got one day he's throwing the sweeper thing. One day he's throwing the splitter. It's just like, he's so creative what he wants to do every time out on the mound. And then hitting wise, I mean, I can totally relate to what he's going through hitting wise, is because he's sitting there with so much confidence, and he knows that guy is putting the pressure on that ball, trying to make a great pitch. And you're seeing a lot of pitches left over the middle of the plate. If you leave anything over the middle of the plate for him, sayonara, dude. It is. I mean, it's a bullet base hit, gap shot, or a homer, and it's so effortless. I think it was yesterday. He had a ground ball past second base, and he ran his ass off and turned it into a double. I mean, well, gentlemen, we need to all, Major League Baseball, we need to embrace this, because we might never see this again in our lifetime.
No, he's as close to like the perfect all-around player, pitcher, and hitter that we've ever seen. So what happened? Like, you weren't enough? You didn't show him some of the Dig Me videos from back in the day? What was the pitch?
Hey, listen, I was just a lonely little bench coach, looked at some videos, and I told him, like, man, you be one hell of a pitcher, you know. And I think the thing is that San Diego really wanted him to play in the outfield. And they thought that he could play in the outfield and do the pitching. Again, this is before they switched it where the DH and the pitcher can stay in the game, you know. So obviously things have changed since then. But I don't know. I don't know if we've ever really heard the real reason why he elected the Angels. I would assume he wanted to play with, at the time, the greatest player in the game was Mike Trout. So, and he wants to win there with Mike Trout. And I mean, they got a nice team, but unfortunately, Mike Trout's hurt again, and hopefully they can get something done for him and try to keep him here in Anaheim.
And I think back then that was the major disadvantage. You're in the National League, you don't have the DH to fall back on, right? Like, he's trying to kind of prove himself there.
That's the real game, though. That's the real game. I'm sorry. Listen, I wasn't a big fan of the DH. I didn't like DHing. The only time that I ever DH'd is if I was coming off an injury. Tony might DH me for a game to get in the swing of things, hitting wise. But I wasn't a big fan. And then when I got into coaching, then you really saw what really goes on. When you're a player, you're not, maybe AJ, because you're catching, you're more in on it, a lot of the moves and stuff, and you can see if a pitcher's not really having it. But as far as position player, I'm concentrating on what I can do defensively, offensively. And then when I was coaching, man, that's when I really opened my eyes up, and you really can see the things that really go behind the scenes that when you're a player, you're not in tune to.
Yeah, you don't want to see those as a player, though. You don't want to know.
Yeah.
Because as a player, there's too much already happening. If you had to deal with all that, because trust me, when I do broadcasting, we get to go in and talk to managers, and they give us stuff that we can't use on the air, obviously. And it's like, man, if I knew this when I first started doing it, I'm like, man, is this the way the managers talk about all the players? Is this what they say? This is what they're saying about me? Now I know why this was happening, right? And you're like, gosh, okay, I get it now. This game's hard enough. So if it's a player, you trust me, you want it separated. So it is eye-opening, like you said, though. Once you look up and you're like, oh man, there's a different side to this that I don't see as a player.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I wanted to ask you on that note, on the coaching front, because it's a very fresh story about Trevor Rosenthal and how he's kind of brought the coaching and the encouragement and everything that you brought to the table for him, who also obviously had to convert from infielder to pitcher. And he said, this is just like a little piece of it. My first spring training camp, I showed up early each day, not knowing what to expect, figured wise not to be late. Quickly found the first activity every day in the batting cages. Pitchers have work to be done traditionally. Stuck my nose into the cage. Found two coaches hard at work, Mark McGwire, John Mabry. They welcomed my baby face with a common question for rookie year players. Are you lost? Was that one of your lines to some of the rookies that would come through and they're all starry-eyed, and then goes on with a lot more, giving you a ton of credit of, being the first guy basically to high-five them after all that. Have you seen this?
No, I haven't.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome. This is all true. All true. Trevor Rosenthal. Okay, so I'm in there working with hitters, and then all of a sudden this young pitcher come and he's sitting there watching the hitters do their work in the cage. I've never seen that before. I'm sorry. And then he starts picking our brains and asking us things about what these guys are trying to do. He's trying to better himself. And then you hear the story about him where he had to go to a junior college, I believe, and he was throwing 90, 91. Within 2 years later, he was throwing 100. And so the story is just great. I mean, I loved it. I mean, what a great guy. And it's so unfortunate the injuries he's ended up having at the end of his career. But man, what a force! I really enjoyed talking to him about hitting. He was picking my brains. And then the thing is I would pick his brain about pitching, what he was thinking about trying to do. Because listen, like AJ, we made a living watching that pitcher, and we made a living on picking things out. And I became really good at that, seeing fingernails and this and splitters and hands like this, which it's funny you talk about coaching. When I was coaching, it's like I used to tell guys, I used to be in the dugout, and I used to jump when I'd see somebody throwing a knuckle on a knuckle curveball or see the hand sideways. I used to jump. I'm like, can't you see that? And they're like, what are you looking at? The unfortunate thing is these kids today, they're having all this information given to them, so they don't really know how to do it themselves. And that was one of those things I tried to get a bunch of players on trying to listen. If I had the video stuff that you had today, not the VHS tapes that we had to use, thanks to Tony Gwynn, with the video revolution, he started it back in the early 90s. I mean, it's like if I had the stuff today, oh my God, I mean, that's just Katie bar the door, man, because I would have such a head start on facing somebody which I've never faced before, because I would see every little thing about him. And that's the thing, is like, you have to study this stuff. It's not about just seeing a percentage. It's about seeing this hand slot, where he's going over here. He's a splitter, change up. Man, I pick that stuff up all the time.
Who was well, you're speaking about coaching, because John Mabry I played for, he was the hitting coach when I was in St. Louis. He didn't teach me a thing, so you must not have rubbed off on him. I'm joking. I love Mabry. I'm totally joking. I love Mabry.
What an awesome guy, man.
He's one of the best human beings. Who was the fight, as you were coaching, who was the fight you guys got into and you and somebody squared up and you guys grabbed each other?
Arizona.
Yeah, who did you grab?
When I was Dodgers. Yeah, I had Matt Williams and who was it? Oh my God, I forget. Like, I had him in my arms. Like, I was just like, I was so pissed. It's like, you know what? It's one of those things where I don't get really pissed off a lot. But if I do get pissed off, I mean, I get boiling, and sometimes I don't even know my own strength, and it's just one of those things where it's just like I couldn't stand it. They hit Puig, and then they hit Puig in the face, and then they hit Greinke up in the shoulder, and then it was Katie bar the door, and then next thing you know, we're going on there, and I think it was Ian Kennedy that ended up doing it, and they had the pitcher warming up in the bullpen prior to Ian Kennedy taking the mound. So, let's put two and two together. We knew what was going on. And my whole thing was them admitting that they were doing this, and they didn't say a word.
Yeah, Kirk Gibson, right?
Dude, I'm not.
Yeah, Gibson. Yeah.
If Mark McGwire grabs me and he has me in the air with one arm and he has someone else in the air with one arm, yes, sir. Whatever. Yeah. Yep. We do it. Go kick his ass. Whip me down and go kick his ass.
I was right. I got suspended 2 games for that. I got fined. So it wasn't a pretty moment. And, I do think some of these things could be happening. I mean, could happen today. Unfortunately, they put a kibosh on this thing today. And I just wish that the umpires would be a little bit more tougher skinned and allow things. It's funny. My kid sent me some videos the other day about the old Earl Weaver and Tommy Lasorda getting thrown out, but they would go out there and they would it's all about entertaining the fans, right? And they would have these like screaming, yelling matches with these umpires, and the umpires would sit there and take it, and it was absolutely hilarious. Some of the stories you see and hear, and then today it's like the umpires, listen, I totally respect what they're doing, but I wish they had a little bit tougher skin and not in, listen, they're not going to get it right all the time, just like players don't get it right all the time. And, I just wish there were sometimes the umpires would say, you know what, AJ, you probably see this behind home plate. Let's say if umpire misses a call, right? He calls a strike, he misses it, and the player turns around and starts screaming at him. If an umpire just said, you're right, I missed it, what's the player going to do? The player's just going to sit there and go, he can't argue that. The umpire just admitted he missed it.
That helps.
And then it's
that
over
helped
with.
a lot.
But the
if
thing
umpire
is
said
the
that, you're like,
umpires
okay.
the umpires today, they want to be right all the time. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not. Who cares? Who cares? So anyways.
Did you like coaching, and do you want to jump back in at any point? Manager, did you ever think about any of that, or you felt like you had your time?
I think the time's over with. The game's changed. I think there was a time that, I did thought about managing, but never got a call, never, no interviews, nothing. The thing is, I really enjoyed being the hitting coach in St. Louis and then LA. LA was a challenge for me, being with a team with a bunch of veterans, and I took that as a challenge, and ended up going to the playoffs quite a few years in a row, and then they made the switch. Andrew Friedman came in, gave us 1 year, and then the next year he relieved all his coachings along with Donnie Mattingly, and then I was lucky enough to go to San Diego, be a bench coach with Andy Green, who I truly believe is one of the smartest guys in baseball that have been around. He definitely is he is up there with Tony La Russa as far as game management. And unfortunately, they didn't give him the teams that they have now in San Diego. But being a bench coach, I thought that's like the next step to be maybe a manager. But unfortunately, the bench coach, I did both sides of the game. I studied both sides of the game. I'm at the beck and call of what Andy needs. Andy was so smart. He basically did everything himself. But if he needed advice, I was there for him. But the one thing that was sort of, I just was in that gray area. I couldn't really go work with the hitters. I couldn't really go work with anybody on fielding wise. The players would look at me, go, hey, well, we have hitting coaches. Hey, we have this. And then, then you have other coaches saying, if that's not your area, then why are you coming to talk to my other coaches? And, there's a lot of insecurity in the coaching business, which, I see. But with me, the more you can talk about we're all talking about the same thing, and the way that the players perceive it and understand it might get it with what I'm saying compared to what the other hitting coach is saying or the other infield coach is saying. It might resonate, and there's no problem with that. And it's like we're all collaborating together. We're all trying to do one thing, is to get the best out of the player and to try to win. And unfortunately, the bench coach job there was it was a little bit. I found myself shagging more than doing anything else, and we had a lot of young kids that probably shouldn't have been up in the big leagues, and it wasn't a good culture in there. It was a lot of losing, a lot of guys that were DFA'd and stuff. That it was unfortunately because Andy Green. I wish Andy Green would get in. Hopefully, I really do. He's there working in Chicago, the bench coach, and hopefully he'll get another shot because he's absolutely brilliant, and he's got unbelievable people skills. So it was I enjoyed it, but it was a little tough time for me there in San Diego.
So are you saying Andy Green was better than Tony La Russa?
No, I'm not saying no.
Okay.
No.
I was going to say, you're going to be getting a phone call. Tony's going to be like, Mac, this is Tony. Now I'm going to throw at your head. I'm then protecting you.
No. So Tony had Andy when Tony was over in Arizona, and Andy was their AA manager over there, and then he ended up becoming third base coach, excuse me, for the Diamondbacks. So Tony knew how smart Andy was, and then I got a chance to see that, and I'm sitting there thinking, wow, I got another Tony on my hands here. This is unbelievable. But unfortunately, he wasn't given the team that obviously they have now. And knowing what I know that Andy can do, Andy can definitely be a winning manager.
We'll swing right back to Legends territory in a sec. Let's shout out our good friends that hook us up with the sweetest shades in the biz. Yes, Shady Rays, who we are excited to be partnered with for this run of Legends territory. Do you want world-class products without paying your ass off? These are your guys right here, okay? If you like what you're seeing right now, but you feel like you shouldn't be paying at ridiculous prices for polarized sunglasses that look good, that give you all of the style, all of the protection from the sun for your eyes, this is where you need to be looking. Plus, it's not just about how you look, but how you're treated, which is important here with FT and with LT and with everything that's a part of the Foul Territory group and the Legends Territory shows. Is if you have a problem like you lost or broke your shades, we don't need to have a whole talk show about it, okay? I like how AJ is really contributing here.
I'm just looking good in my Shady Rays. Oh, now that I took them off, I can contribute.
Thank you. Actually, I liked what you were doing. Just shaking your head, agreeing with everything I say, which is rare.
I'll go back to that.
But if you lose or break a pair, even on day one, they will send you a brand new pair, no questions asked. That is part of the lost and broken replacements plan. And also, Shady Rays has a great setup for receiving shades, and maybe you're not into them within the first 30 days. Cool. Return them. They'll get you something new, or they'll refund what you've got. So lots of ways to be taken care of by the best in the biz, Shady Rays. And we want to remind all of our watchers, listeners of Legends territory that you too can be like AJ Pierzynski. Exclusively for Legends territory watchers and listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal this season at shadyrays.com. Use the code FOUL, F-O-U-L, for 50% off 2+ pairs of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 250,000 people. AJ, you nailed it. Back to Legends territory.
You guys were the Bash Brothers in Oakland with Tony as your manager. You guys won one World Series. There was two other ones you guys played in that didn't go the same, obviously. That's why I think you picked up Kirk Gibson with one hand, because you were mad about the home run, and Matt Williams was, you were like, well, Matt Williams, you let us win one, so I don't know which one to throw first, right? So,
oh my gosh.
Just talk about those. Talk about those. Yeah, we'll get to Kirk Gibson after we talk. We're going to talk about you winning first, and then we'll talk about Kirk Gibson.
Yeah.
But
well,
do you guys think you should have won more? Because you won 89, obviously, with the earthquake. But do you guys think you should have won more than just the one, and especially in that run?
We should have won. We should have won 3 in a row. And I think the Dodgers that year were, God, I don't even know if they had 90 wins that year. And they had a bunch of players on the team that just gelled at the end of the year, and they just ran the table. So 89, it was a great run. And the thing is, the unfortunate thing is we had the earthquake, and that was crazy. It was right before the third game, and I remember I was down at the third base line. I was just bending over to stretch my hamstrings, and the next thing I thought I was surfing. The ground was just like going like, oh my God. I looked up, and I'm like, oh my God, look at the light standards. They're just swaying and swaying. And I'm like, well, that's an earthquake. And then it was just quiet. Everything went out. And then nobody knew what to do. And then we found out that our families, that I think we had 2 or 3 buses that left Oakland, came across the Bay Bridge. They just obviously passed the Bay Bridge 15, 20 minutes prior to the earthquake. They were just coming into the stadium at that time, thank goodness, or they could have been in that when the bridge collapsed. So we ended up standing around, and I don't know how long it was, maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours. And then we went and got her. They ended up calling obviously the game. The Marina District is on fire. Bob Welch, who was one of our great starters at the time, and his family was down there, and the rumor was I heard he was severely ADD and he loved running. So I heard that he tried to take a car, but the traffic was so much on the freeway that he ended up getting out and he ran all the way down to the marina to see and luckily everybody was okay. But it took us over 3 hours to get from San Francisco back over to Oakland. We had to go all the way down to San Jose and come back up the 80. And then we had 10 days off, and we ended up flying down to Phoenix to practice, to have inter squad games down in Phoenix. Then we came home, and then we ended up winning 2 straight there, and won it 4-0 against the Giants.
Mac, I want to take you to current times here and what's left.
We didn't get to hear about Kirk Gibson. I want to know what his reaction was to Kirk Gibson. Well, we talked about the winning. Because this is in the history of baseball.
Yeah,
it's one of the top 5 home runs ever hit, probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that is shown them. I mean, his home run when he hit 62. I mean, Kirk Gibson. There's a few that are like, oh wow, and people are like, so were you on the field when this happened? Were you at first base?
Yeah, it went right over my head.
Were you like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah. And it's well, the thing is like, so Dennis Eckersley, who was nails, right? Never walked anybody, never did anything. He walks Mike Davis, who was the pinch hitter, on 4 straight pitches. And that was the thing that I was like sitting there going, what are we doing? I mean, really? So if he hits the home run, he ties the ball game. What are we having supposedly the go-ahead run come to plate? And I couldn't believe that. I was just like, what? I mean, I've never seen Dennis do that, really. 4 straight balls. Ended up walking. And then on top of it, he was a pinch hitter. And I don't ever think that we ever thought that Kirk Gibson was going to be pinch hitting. He couldn't do anything. I believe his hamstring was totally separated and it was just completely, but that's his mentality, former football player. And his mentality was, I'm not going to be on the, back then they called it the DL and now it's the IL, but so he ends up hobbling up there. And as the story goes that I think it was Bob Didier, I believe it was, the scout, told him that if he ever gets to a 3-2 count, it's always a backdoor slider. And that was the thing is like, he had no chance on Dennis's fastball, no chance. You can see that if you go back and watch it right now, he had no chance of doing it. There was I think he topped one over and, I went up to field. It was just barely fouled by a foot or two. And obviously he remembered that and threw that backdoor breaking ball. And that was the only pitch that he can ever put into play. And he did it, hit it over my head and turned there, put my head down on the ground and walked in the dugout. It was as quiet as could be.
Years later, he got him back.
Yeah. Not exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you hate to bring up bad, obviously, but that honestly is like one of the iconic home runs in baseball history because it happened in the World Series.
Yeah.
It was so, Mark grabbed him and was like, hey, Ragdoll, I'm going to throw you over here. And Kirk Gibson was a bad dude now.
Yeah, that's why. That was a legendary brawl with the coaches more than the players.
Yeah. We're not talking about the brawl. We're talking about, other stuff.
Yes.
We got into it. You were in LA in 14, were you not? 2014, you were coaching?
Yes.
Yeah, because I was with the Cardinals, and we cleared in the playoffs. And I'm like, if Mark McGwire comes to get me, I'm running. Because we cleared in LA, because Adrian Gonzalez said something to Yachty, and he scored or hit a home run, and then, and I'm like, oh shit, if Mark McGwire grabs me, I don't want no. Where's Kershaw at? You can hug over here. I'm not letting McGwire get a hold of me though.
Yeah, they're like you said, they're all hug fest usually, except for the other day. That was pretty.
Yeah, exactly. They stand out a lot nowadays when they're not hug fest.
For
That's
sure.
why. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark, do you think about the Hall of Fame at all? Like, is that on your mind? Do you get asked about it a lot? Do you care about it?
Yeah, I mean, I care about it, but it's if it happens, it happens. It's one of those things that unfortunately I missed my time, and if there's a time when it's with the committee that separate committee they have now that might vote me in. I mean, it would be an unbelievable feeling, but it's past its time. It's what else am I going to say? It's unfortunate.
I listen. I wasn't in it, but I was kind of at the tail end of it, whatever you want to call it. But I think that what you did for baseball alone in 1998 with Sammy, right? You were lucky. You're fortunate you had someone with you. I mean, what you went through. You talked about the fans. You talked about the home runs. You talked about people following you everywhere. It's almost like a Cal Ripken moment remember when he broke the record, right? That was a moment. I mean, and so for me as a kid and then as a minor league player and then coming up and then getting to watch it live, I mean, that alone should give you credit because it's not like you're not a well-liked guy. Everyone I know loves you. I mean, we're talking to you here. You've been great. So it's not a thing of that. No, I'm serious. Everybody like Eric Karros, obviously I know Eric Karros. Yeah. Like they all talk about you like on a different level of a great guy. And so, and that always is supposed to play into it. And I just don't see how there's a way that with all you did and for baseball, playing baseball, that they should, and whatever happened. It doesn't matter to me. But I agree. I believe that there should be something where you, Barry, Roger, the guys, like the dudes that were the dudes, the dudes, because you played against. I played against.
There's a lot of dudes.
There's a lot of dudes that didn't get in for various reasons, but I think there should be a way that we should get you in and the dudes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate. Again, it's like, obviously it's up to the committee. The committee's with some of the Hall of Famers and a few writers, I believe. And so, I mean, if it does, it's fantastic. I mean, it would be an unbelievable moment, but I'm not going to expect it. To your point, like saying that I'm a nice guy is like, that's all I thought about was being nice to my teammates and respect my teammates. And, the thought that people forget, they look at what happened, but the thought of what, it's not like I meant to have this happen. It's just like, it just happened. And to basically put baseball on my back and turn it around and get people to love the game again after what we did in '94. And it's just one of those things I think a lot of people forgot about that. It's like, listen, I agree with you. I even though the size might see something, but the sensitivity inside and the feelings that I have for my teammates and how, like, when I went through '98 and how I was embarrassed that the media would come up and talk to me every game and take away some notoriety from the players amongst that clubhouse that did really well that game. They wanted to come talk to me about not hitting a home run or hitting a home run. And it was one of those things where I almost felt embarrassed about it because I was like, oh my God, listen, I couldn't have any teammates even want to go out with me. They couldn't go out with me because everywhere I went. And I've said this story a few times. I had 2 security guards with me, and they had rooms next to me for the last, I believe, month and a half of the season on the road. And they were both packing. They didn't want to have anything happen that there was, as the rumor was, what happened to Hank Aaron and supposedly stuff. And you hear about the stories about his mom coming and hugging him and think that something was going to happen. They were carrying stuff with them. They were packing. They were PD guys. And so it's one of those things that, I really, listen, I did what I did in the hard work that I put behind it, the amount of mindset that I had to go through and what I had to go through that last weekend of the season. I was just telling this story the other day. This young kid that I was working with asked me, he goes, hey, how was it going to that last week with against Sammy? And I said, well, let me tell you. So I'm sitting on the field that Friday night. Sammy's playing in Houston. And the whole stadium has the game on, watching Sammy in Houston. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I hear this, oh, and he went ahead. He hit 66, and I was at 65. And then I said to myself, I said, I can't let this happen, because it's like, the funny thing is I'm sitting there going, okay, I broke the record first, but if Sammy takes this over, he's going to have the record. And in my mind, I dug as deep as I can dig. I was like being Tiger Woods winning all his championships. I was like Kobe Bryant doing what he does. And it's one of those things where I ended up hitting 5 home runs in the next 3 days and ended up with 70. And it's just like it's just the mindset can get you to get you places where you don't know. And it's unfortunate that I guess people want to forget that. And but it's just one of those things that, listen, I apologize for what I did, and that didn't have to happen. I didn't need it. And I'll tell you what, that was fucking a lot of hard work that I fucking put in. And I appreciate, AJ, you saying those things and everybody saying those things about me. And hopefully someday that I do get a call, and it would be such a great honor.
Do you feel like you're being unfairly punished, or maybe your group? Maybe I should say the group of you, not maybe singling you out as just yourself, but kind of that whole group of, again, the same people are being unfairly punished because of a bias or whatever you want to call it?
Well, it seems like it. That's what it is. I think I heard Barry say it the other day. There was no rules and there was no regulation. Believe me, trust me. If there was any rules in place, and that stuff would have never happened. There was no testing. There was no nothing. So it's like, and I agree with what Barry was saying. It's like there's like, listen, that was the culture. That was that's what was going on back in those days, and whatever. But I can personally tell you from me, knowing me, listen, I didn't need to do it, and I apologize for it, and but there was a lot of fucking hard work that went behind all the shit that people want to give me to do what I did.
Listen, I came up right at the tail end. I told you that, but for me, like you said, there was no testing. It was the Wild West. I mean, it literally was. And then once they started testing, like whatever you did before there was testing, and again, I know it wasn't legal in the U.S., right? Like it was, whatever. But once you started testing, and then if you got popped, that was when I was like, as a player, I was like, now these dudes are like hardcore bad, right? But if you were doing it, whatever you did, like that, like it happened before, and some people felt, and I think Barry said this, and some other people said, I need to keep up with, because there was a lot of people doing it. And I'm not going to name any names, but I knew I played with a ton of guys, and some made it and some didn't. That did it, and they still didn't make it, right? So to me, it's like, okay, there was this generation of players that were unbelievably good. And Mark, you can't tell me that you don't know dudes that are in the Hall of Fame that did it. I mean, I do. And that's fine. That was their thing. Yeah, but you can't be selective about it. You got to be, hey, this is what it was. And you, like you said, there was a shitload of hard work that went in, and you worked your ass off, and you put baseball on your back in '98 and made it a thing again.
Right. Well, I mean, AJ, to your point, yeah. I mean, it's like, yeah, I know a lot. I know a lot, but I'm from that school where I keep things to myself, and I'm not going to sit there and point fingers at anybody. But yeah, I know a lot, and I'll just keep it there. And listen, all I can do is, and this is where I just take responsibility for me, and that's all I can worry about is me and being a good person, being a good human being, being a good father, being a good husband, and that's all I care about. So I know I can wake up every day and look at myself in the mirror and appreciate what I see. It's been a lot of hard work. All it's been getting a lot harder as you get older. So but,
tell me about it.
I'm a month and a half away turning 60. So it's just like,
Damn,
it's unbelievable that I'm going to be 60 years old come October. So it's crazy. I've learned a lot about everything in the last 22 years of being retired. Start a family, have 5 kids.
Scott's jealous of your bicep. When you went like this, Scott was like, "Damn, I need to get to working out."
He's doing the interview with a gym behind him. Come on.
Yeah, and I'm in the gym every day. Listen, I got a 20-year-old son, I got a 19-year-old son, and I got triplet girls that just turned 13. So I got to stay young as a father, and they got to keep me running around, and it's a beautiful thing. Got a great wife, and I'm living a good life. So it's just I enjoy watching my boys play the game, and that's sort of what my job now is right now.
Hey, I want to one more on the home run chase. I want to ask you about Sammy. I'm assuming you're not keeping in touch. He has not been. I know, like you said, you did enough for the game for a while. He has not been in the limelight. The Cubs situation has been weird. It seems like like you don't have that. Like you've gone back to St. Louis and all that. You guys have a great relationship, as most former players do. I don't know what exactly all went down. I know it's been written about a lot, but what do you think about Sammy and kind of his separation from the game and the organization?
I don't know, because it's like I don't know him personally, and I get that asked a lot. It's like, hey, what about Sammy? I'm like, I only knew Sammy on the field. I never got to know Sammy personally. So it's just like all the players, basically the players I played against. I mean, there's very few players that I got to know personally. But it is unfortunate what's happened with Chicago. I have no idea what's going on there, but I understand that he's a successful businessman, and I believe he's living in Florida. He does a lot of things overseas, from what I've heard. True or false about that? But it would be nice to see him get back with the Cubs. Actually, it's funny. My son got drafted last year, and he's with the Cubs. So it's like it's so funny. It's like the little battle that we had, and now one of my boys is playing for the Cubs.
Mark, when I love what you just said, though. You didn't know anybody off the field because it was frowned upon. You weren't playing grab ass with the other team. I mean, I guarantee you, Tony was like, "You don't talk to the other team." And you had guys, your pitching coaches and your coaches were like, "You don't talk to the other team," especially when you were young. They're like, "Oh no, they're the enemy." And so to hear him say that, I mean, think about it. You had the handshake where you guys were like giving each other.
Yeah, well, they were marketing them together.
No, I understand that. But to hear him say, like, I only knew him on the field. I mean, that's it's pretty remarkable.
AJ, think about it. Like, everybody thinks all the actors know everybody. They don't really know anybody. They don't know each other. Like, you're a great actor. I mean, it doesn't mean you see the guy. You might do some acting with him, but it doesn't mean you know him personally. They're a teammate, or they're on the other team. It's like, I mean, it's like you don't know everybody you work with in any kind of line of business. It's like they're a part of your team. You know them, you see them, you go away. A lot of my friends that I have were non-baseball friends, and it's like I only had a very few select friends that are away, that were baseball players away. And as you know, AJ, once the season's over, everybody scatters away and they go home and they go back to their families. So, it's one of those things where everybody thinks that we're all friends, but back in those days, to your point, it's like it was frowned upon if you were out there running sprints before the game, and then next thing you know, you're hugging and talking for 5 minutes before the game.
So let's finish with Mason, drafted by the Cubs in 2022.
I'm sorry. Oh, wait.
Well, you got Mr. Cub next to me here.
Yes, exactly. Mr. Cub. Totally.
Mr. Cub 2.0. But really, I mean, how cool is it for you now to be able to see Mason kind of working his journey to try to get to the bigs and to be dad? AJ talks about this all the time. It's like the balance of, I was pretty good at this. I could probably give you some tips, but, kids don't want to hear everything from their parents, right?
Oh, yeah. Mark was better than I was, so they might listen to him.
No, my son's a pitcher. So, I try to help him out because, like I tell him, I'm like, hey, listen, I made a living watching pitching. So, even though I don't know the everything about pitching, I can see what's going on. I can see if you're tipping pitches. I can see your body language. I can see everything. So, he's 19 years old. He's pitching in the Arizona Development League, which is their new rookie league. And he's doing okay. I mean, he's had his licks. He's learning from them. I'm like I told him. I said, listen, you're 19 years old. This is like your freshman year in college. Every outing, good or bad, you have to learn from it. He's trying to master his craft. He's never really had a pitching coach. We've just sort of winged it. He's in conversations with a few of my friends that are pitching coaches, and so he's doing his thing. And I go out there. I was just out there last week watching him pitch, and it's great. I love it. The only thing is, the toughest thing is you can't do anything about it. So I got more anxiety. I'm sure every parent says that, and I'm sure every parent that played the game, that has a kid playing today, you have more anxiety watching your boys than you did when you played, and it's a true statement.
Yeah, because you're not in control.
My kid's 16. Oh my gosh, it's the oh my god. What you said is because you can't control it.
Yep.
So you
can't control it,
and you're up there watching, and you're like, gosh, I would do this, and you're like, I'm looking for this, and your kid goes up there, and he's a pitcher, my kid's a hitter, he strikes out, and you're like, son of a bitch, why did you strike out? And I'm sure he gives up a home run. You're like, listen, how do you give up a home run? He was looking for the damn curveball.
I got to give him a side note there. That's because AJ swung at everything, and his kid's got like.
He's got the Mark McGwire walk is as good as a hit on.
Yeah, he's got the plate discipline, which is going to carry him. So I will give him that. Yeah,
That's
exactly. Good. Well, Mac, hey, we really appreciate the time, man. It was awesome to catch up with you, have a good long combo. We've been looking forward to this. So thank you very much for the time, and appreciate it.
AJ,
and good luck to your son.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, you.
Mac.
Appreciate it. Hey,
brother.
And for everyone watching and listening to Legends Territory, for more info on your favorite former players, hit up baseballalumni.com. Thank you for setting this up to the MLB Players Alumni Association. And if you're watching this, there's also the pod version on Apple and on Spotify. We will see you next time on LT.